Hello and welcome to our mini PD for scaffolding success. My name is Jasinski and I'll be your presenter for today. To get us started, I'd like to do a little bit of an activity. I know it's early, we're all just kind of waking up, but sometimes this is the best way just to go and jump both feet right in. So on your table, you're going to find a little baggie with a kit in it. I'd like you each to take one of those and your coordinator is going to walk around and go ahead and give you an instruction sheet. Now, she's been specifically told to make sure it's upside down, and I'm counting on you to follow the instructions and leave it upside down until you've been told to flip it, okay? For those of you that are participating from your own home, go ahead and get that kit out. And again, I'm kind of trusting you here at this point to keep that sheet flipped upside down until we tell you to start, okay? Does everybody have their kit? Everybody's ready to go? Okay, go ahead and flip your sheet and begin. Oh, I see some worried faces, maybe a little bit of anger, maybe some of you that are looking at your neighbor, like maybe they have something that you don't. What's the problem? I've given you materials, right? I've given you some instruction, right? Maybe not as much as you wanted, but I can't do it for you, right? I'd like you to take a minute and really remember how you're feeling right now, emotionally, physiologically, because many times you're feeling exactly how our students feel in our math classes. We might feel that we've given them the best that we could, or not with those instructions, but we've given them the tools, we're using the materials we've been given, but yet they don't have the confidence to know what to do next or what even to do first. This professional development is just a mini one. And it's all about trying to help you give those students the best chance to have the confidence and the skill set to feel that they can be successful and go from developing their skills to having some mastery. Okay, so let's think for a minute, what might I have done that would have been more helpful to you? I might have built a model and showed it to you ahead of time, right? I might have given you some time to talk. I might have walked you through the process with another model and then given you your own, right? I might have done something as simple as giving you this picture. That would have helped you, right? These are always a scaffold. This is a way to set your students up for success. Give them the tools so that they can have confidence when faced with a problem that might otherwise seem impossible to go ahead and take that first step and work on solving, okay? And that's why we're here today. So if you felt those things, when I'm going through these steps with you, and some of it might seem simple or some of it might seem too much, remember how you felt, okay? All right, let's go ahead and move forward. So we're gonna jump right in again to using one of our scaffolding tools, okay? We're gonna go with our good old friend, tried and true, think, pair, and share. Now I've already put on the screen what I'd like you to start thinking about by yourself, okay? The two words on the top, scaffolding and rescuing. I'm sure that you've all heard them. You might have even gotten into an argument over them at some point or another. I know, unfortunately, that I have. So, what do those mean to you, especially in your classroom setting? What do they look like? Are they the same? Are they different? Do they sound the same? And if you have some examples of what you feel each one is, that's great. Write those down as well, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and start a timer, and I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes. I think that's about enough. Some of you will have more to say, some of you will have less, and that's okay. We are gonna pair up and share these, so make sure you're comfortable sharing whatever you're writing, okay? I am gonna hit the timer. However, I'm gonna stop it right before the end because it kind of has a loud beep that some people probably won't appreciate too much. So go ahead and take a moment and then we'll reconvene. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and pretend the timer went off. All right, so now I'd like you to go ahead and pair up with who I have you on the board. For those of you that are working in the same physical space, go ahead and just move to one another. For those of you that aren't, go ahead and you'll find that there are breakout rooms attached to the Zoom that you can go ahead and click and go into, and I'll call you back from those as well. Again, I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes. You can either set a timer for yourself or just wait for me to call you back, but go ahead and have those conversations about what you've thought about for scaffolding versus rescuing. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. At this point, I would do a share out with everyone. We would discuss, find out some misconceptions that maybe are there, some that maybe aren't, and go on from there. Thank you to everybody that shared. I hope that was meaningful for you. I know it was meaningful for me. As the educator in this situation, it opens me up to understand where you're at right now, which is one of our steps in scaffolding. We need to understand where our students are coming from so we can meet them there and then give them those steps, that ladder, that bridge to go ahead and move forward, okay? So another great strategy is visualization. Just like in our initial activity, if I had given you a picture of what you were trying to do, it probably would have helped some of you at least to go ahead and make your model. Now, finding pictures of scaffolding versus rescuing in a classroom are probably not so easy, and we could probably have a great debate over which is which. So instead, I've given you some real-world examples here. Some might be easier than others to figure out, and that's okay. But we want to look and see what's scaffolding, what's rescuing in these cases, okay? So take a minute. If you have some ideas, let's go ahead and share those. All right, Thomas, did you see one that you felt was a definitive scaffold or a definitive rescue? Okay, I would agree with you. Is there anyone else that agrees with Thomas that the bottom right picture would definitely be a rescue? Right. Who would be the educators in this picture? Right, the people in the water, that's excellent. And then those people in the boat would be our students, okay? Another one that would be a rescue would be really easy to pick out, I'm sure. Gabby. Exactly, this one in the middle right here. Again, we have our educators and we have our student, unfortunately, in this case, right? So that would mean probably, because I like things to be even, unfortunately, that these last two are scaffolding, right? Right, and you're correct. These are both photos that I chose to show scaffolding. Now, who is the teacher and who's the student in this picture, Allison? Okay. Do you agree? Very good. I agree as well. This is our teacher down here. This is our educator. Yes, we're doing some of the work. We're holding those ropes. We're yelling up, you're doing okay. Try this. Don't give up. But our student is the one that's hanging on the side of the wall. Our student is the one that had the confidence to say, I'm ready to go up there, and I've got the skills that you've given me to do it. So to me, this is a picture representing scaffolding. Jerry? Yes, and this one, very good. This one is obviously a picture of actual scaffolding, but I think that having that visual representation of scaffolding is really helpful too, because the scaffolding isn't always the same level. Not everybody's on the same step, and not everybody needs the same support. I mean, this guy looks like he's probably on the outside of it. This guy is well within, and he's still holding on. So our students don't have to be on the same level of the scaffolding. We don't have to be holding so tightly to the idea that only one thing can be done, that we only have time for one thing, okay? Each of our students is going to take something different, and we can meet them where they are and help them to climb to the top, okay? Whether it's of a scaffold or of a mountain, okay? The one thing that I want you to remember when you're trying to determine whether you're scaffolding or rescuing in your classroom is who is doing the heavy lifting, okay? Who is doing the heavy work? If you're doing the writing, the talking, and the figuring, you're rescuing at that point. And we all have that tendency. We wouldn't be teachers if we didn't want our students to be successful no matter what. We wouldn't. It just isn't the case. Some of us have been in long enough that we realize that we are only helping our students so much if we're doing it for them. And the rest of us would get there and realize that as well. The importance of scaffolding is that it helps us build that bridge from developing some skill to having mastery over it, okay? And each student is going to take different levels, and that's okay. But we are responsible for building that walkway so that we're not always rescuing. All right, is there any questions about this? Is there any other examples that kind of popped into your head that are even better than mine that you'd like to share? Okay. Very good. I know in a lot of movies, like you were talking, there are really great examples of scaffolding and rescuing, and sometimes you just have to watch and say, oh, if only they knew what I know, they could do it different. Very good. Let's go ahead and move forward. So while I may be your PD presenter, there are people that are obviously better experts than I am, and I always love to share what some of those folks have to say, okay? So I'd like you to read these to yourself. I'm not going to read them to you. And either talk at your table or talk in your breakout room chat for now, and then we'll share out together. What do you think the main takeaway is from these different experts and what they have to say? Does it fit what you think about scaffolding? Is there something you're wondering or something that surprised you that they said? Go ahead and take a few minutes, and then we're going to come back and talk about it all together. So on this slide, what I would be talking about with the group beyond the different verbiage that's being used here is that each one of them talk about, we're building a bridge, we're finding the distance, and then helping the student achieve what they can do. We're giving assistance, we're not doing it for them. We're providing a tool, we're giving a chunk, we're giving a structure, and things like that. And hopefully having really good conversation about whether or not that fits with what they were thinking, or whether they have another quote that maybe they've heard that really helps them think about it. So that would be my thought process with this slide. Excellent. We had some really good conversation, and I could tell that you guys spent your time wisely speaking with one another and really sharing. Thank you for those of you that had examples that were of what helps you think of scaffolding more clearly. I hope that benefits all of us, and I know it benefited me as well to get some more perspective on where you're coming from. What I'd like to do now is go through some beignets with you. I think one of the best ways, again, that visualization, we've talked about our prior knowledge. Now let's think about some examples here, okay? We're gonna read through these together, and we're going to be looking for the bridges that are being built, the chunks, the tools that are being imparted, okay? And I also want you to think about how you can connect to these. Some of us are parents and some of us aren't, but we're all educators, and we've all sat and worked with a kiddo that was struggling in one way or another, or worked with a kiddo that was starting something new. What have you done that you can now connect to? Oh yeah, I was scaffolding, maybe I just didn't call it that. So we're going to go ahead and talk through these, and I'd love to hear some of your connections. If you're not quite comfortable sharing those connections yet, or you're still kind of fleshing them out, I would like you to write them down on a Post-it note. We're going to use those later. I have some more examples as well, but I always like to use from the group, because when we can be excited about what we're already doing or what we've already done, that helps us to make greater connections, and it helps others in our group to realize that it's possible and that we can have that confidence as well. And maybe there's things that after you read these, you'll be like, oh, I was doing that. I didn't think of it in that way. With this slide, I would be talking with them, reading through, maybe even breaking into groups so that they could really kind of hone in and have deep conversation about what the parent or the teacher was doing that was scaffolding, and also just good educational practice, what they could learn from it or what they might have done differently. I chose 2 lower level as far as grade level beignets. There were some others available. And what my goal for these is that by the end of our guided practice of this after our break and in our independent sessions, they can then apply some of their own connections as well as some new ideas that they have to situations and scenarios given to them for also utilizing scaffolding. And my hope would be that through that independent practice, then when we went into the video submission task where I was asked to go through the math problem, they would have a really deep understanding of what we were looking at and what we were trying to scaffold and flexibly think with in regards to that specific scenario. Okay, I'm glad we shared with those. Thank you guys for working so well together. I know sometimes it's hard to be collaborative, especially in a virtual setting rather, but you guys are doing awesome whether you knew each other before or not. I appreciate your willingness and your confidence in engaging with one another in a meaningful way. So let's go ahead. We're going to move on from the vignettes. I'd like to just talk about some basic strategies. Again, you guys are educators. You know these things. You're doing them whether you mean to or not in some cases. And I also really love this visual for scaffolding. We're all building that book of knowledge. We're all building it for all of our students. We're at different places. We're at different levels. We're at different needs. We need different things to be successful, but we're all making that book for ourselves and for our students. So some of these strategies we've already used. We've used activating prior knowledge, thinking aloud. I try to include a lot of my own anecdotes and things that have helped me in hopes that that helps you think through, as well as giving you ideas to think about, like, well, who's doing the lifting in this picture? So again, we can go into any of these further that you need, but some of them I feel like you're going to be pretty familiar with. Maybe you just didn't know what to call them before. Modeling, especially using concrete prompts and cues. You guys know our kids benefit so much from seeing it done. And those cues that we can build in after too, when we're solving a multi-step word problem, helping them pick out those key mathematician words in all, fewer, less than, used, got more, those words, and connecting them with the operations attached and giving them a way to remember is incredibly helpful. And that's where our modeling comes in. Cooperative learning. We've already done a think, pair, and share. Fishbowl and jigsaw, if you're not familiar with those, are excellent ways, even whether you're a math teacher or a reading teacher, to utilize. And we can go into those further if you're not familiar. We are going to do a little bit of a jigsaw after our break, so we will get into that one. And a fishbowl would be incredibly easy for me to set up with you guys so that you could see what that looks like as well. Showing the product or outcome first early on. Like in our example at the beginning, had I just shown you that picture of the finished model, darn me, you probably would have been a lot more successful in completing your work. Checks for understanding, checking in visually, even just non-verbally checking in with our kids, looking around. I knew there was a lot of frustration, confusion, because I could see it on your faces, and our kids are even easier to read. Pausing, question, pause, review. This is so helpful in areas where our students are having to think abstractly or think in a new way that maybe they haven't before, okay? Just give that wait time, that think time, because that's what they're doing. Those little wheels are turning, and we have to give them time, or otherwise they're just gonna start spinning and then the steam's coming out of the ears and we're all in for it. So don't be afraid to pause. Don't be afraid to ask some questions, and then come back and review it after some more wait time, some more think time. Front load key vocabulary. You guys know this. Having anchor charts, having things up on the walls that help kiddos remember those important words and phrases and terms can make the difference. It can make the difference for the minimum amount of effort for the maximum amount of payout, okay? And these are just some strategies. Of course, you guys use more than this. I use more than this. But these are just some examples that I wanted to share with you to show that, one, you are scaffolding already. And two, that if there's things that you're not working with, they're not big, heavy, clumpy things that you have to bring in, okay? I'd like you to think, about what you are using. What are you using confidently? What do you need more on? Are you confident in activating your kids' prior knowledge? Fishbowl and jigsaw, I understand some people aren't as familiar with those. And it's kind of my mission to bring those to you because I think they're great. So if you're not as familiar with those, that's awesome. Let me know so we can talk about them. We will be doing a jigsaw is the good news. So if that's one you're not so familiar with, we're going to get to it today, and you're going to feel more confident in it and hopefully think it's as cool as I do. So before we go to our break, I told you guys we would be. When we come back, I want you to know what to expect. We will be breaking into smaller groups to jigsaw. I will be giving each group a scenario in a classroom, and I'll be asking you to use some of those strategies we talked about and some other scaffolding strategies. You'll see that there's a packet on your table that's very small. It's kind of like an infomercial, infographic type thing to give you some more ideas. And I want you to think about which of those scaffolding strategies you would use in each of those scenarios and why. I'll go through with you what a jigsaw means, what that's going to look like. It's a really great way to split up some work. It's a great way to have some collaboration, and I hope you enjoyed as well as I do. But before we get to that, I do want to give you a little bit of a break. I'd like you to give me a check for your understanding. Do a self-evaluation for me. It's hard to do these with kids sometimes because they want to feel like they have it and maybe they don't. So it's definitely a skill you have to build in. You have to work with them on it, and we have to work with it as adults too. So one thing that I've learned as an adult is that when I ask for a self-evaluation, it's better if I can do it where people don't have to share out in the large group. Even as adults, we don't always like to out ourselves when we're like, I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what she's talking about. So if you will, and I put a little bit of an instruction at the bottom on your Zoom, you'll see it says chat. If you click that and you go over to, it'll say to everyone. If you click these 3 dots, you can change it to just send to me, the host, okay? And you'll type in a message here. If you will use this scale to tell me how you're feeling about applying scaffolding, what it means to you, what's the difference between scaffolding and rescuing, how you're feeling about where we're going with this. Have you learned a little bit? Are you feeling, oh yeah, I know what she's talking about now? Or are you still completely lost? I'd like you to honestly rate yourself. There's no right or wrong answer here. That one's a favorite to hear, right? And go ahead and send it to just me as the host. Now you will need to change this back so that it can go to everyone, and I'll make sure I change on mine as well. But I would like you to just send that to me so that I can get an idea. That might help me group, that might not help me group, we'll see. But go ahead and take your break. You have about, let's say 15 minutes. Get yourself a snack, get yourself some water, talk to a friend, get an idea, say, oh gosh, I wonder what scenario I'm gonna get, and then go ahead back. Don't forget, if you have a Post-it note that I haven't answered, go ahead and put it by the door. If you have a question that you'd rather ask more privately, go ahead and send me that in the messages, your chat as well, all right? And we'll see you guys after the break.